Before you move on, you'll want to check that the tent is dry. It is super important for gear to be stored dry because otherwise the fabric can grow mold or mildew. This is especially important for tents and shade structures because even if it doesn't rain, there's often enough moisture in the air that in the mornings there will be a fine layer of dew or mist that will accumulate on the tent. In terms of checking for whether or not it's dry, you're going to usually use your hands. Sometimes, however, it's hard to tell whether a tent is wet or cold, so in that case, you can use a piece of toilet paper as well. There are two places to check. The first place is that on each of these pieces of fabric, you'll notice that there are some really thick, strappy pieces. We'll talk about these later, but these are often called the grommet tabs. The reasoning here is that if the thickest piece is wet, then that's the piece that will take the longest to dry, and you'll need to check this again before moving on to the rest of the steps. You'll also want to check comprehensively for each of these three pieces of fabric. As a good visual example of what that means, let's take this piece right here, the footprint. So we're going to lay it flat so you can get a sense. Comprehensively means that you're running your hands along the edges of the fabric and then also across the full span of the fabric on one side and then also on the other side. Now, these two steps we're really going to put together into one step when we're actually checking to be efficient. It would be really difficult and we wouldn't have the space to lay out every sheet of fabric like this and check it in the way that I just visually demonstrated. This was just to show you where you're trying to look. So normally what you would do is, again, let's take this footprint as an example. You would hold it up. As you're holding it up, you're already using your hands to check and squeeze the two grommet tabs by which you're holding it up. Then you're going to use your hands to move along the edges of the fabric. And as you move and get to another grommet tab, you're going to go ahead and check whether or not that one is dry as well. And then while holding it up, you can trace it with your hand from one end of the grommet tab to the other end on the kitty corner, and then do so on the other two grommet tabs to cover the X that we visually diagrammed earlier. Remember, you're going to do this on both sides. Once you've done that, that is just for the footprint. You're going to repeat the process for the body and for the rainfly. So for the body, let's take another example. We're going to go a little bit quicker this time. So hold it up by the two grommet tabs and run your hands along the edges, checking for moisture as you go. Once you've made it all the way around, it's time to do your cross check. Running your hands from each grommet tab to its opposite. Once you are done with the body, then we have to do the rainfly. For the rainfly, I'm also going to be demonstrating using the toilet paper method. So what you'll see is that I'm kind of clenching the toilet paper in the palm of my hand and using it as I squeeze against the grommet. And then when I am doing the step where I'm tracing the edge of the rainfly fabric, again, I'm just squeezing the toilet paper between my palm and using it to glide along the fabric. When you do the toilet paper method, the most important thing to remember is that you have to check the toilet paper on occasion to see whether or not it's picked up any moisture. And if you notice me doing this, sometimes if you use a really small piece of toilet paper, you'll lose track of it. But Just pick it up and keep going, or get a larger piece. Once you've finished moving across all the edges of the fabric, you're going to do the cross on both sides. Now, when you're doing the cross, I find it a little bit difficult with the toilet paper to clench it between my palms. So sometimes I'll just hold it between my fingers and kind of run it along the fabric. Either way will work. One of the difficulties of checking the rainfly, by the way, is that it's an oblong shape. It's not a rectangle. So you might notice that there are more than 4 grommet tabs potentially, and it might not be super clear exactly what is a diagonal from one side kitty corner to the other. You're just going to approximate and do your best. The point of this exercise is just to be sure that we've comprehensively checked as much as possible. Once you've done one side, don't forget to take that piece of toilet paper and do the other side. As needed, always checking the toilet paper to see if it has picked up any moisture. If it has, and you want to keep checking, for example, if it has and you're checking a different fabric now to see if that one also needs to be air dry, then do remember that you'll want to switch a new piece of toilet paper.